Yo, in this episode, we are diving in the crevices of some of the comments that we've gotten on the channel. Comments that would make a grown man cry, but we'll see how Chris handles them, especially around the topic of money versus craft. Stick around for that.
Mo, I don't know if you know this, but everybody's got an opinion and an a-hole. It doesn't mean I want to see either. So in this episode, we're going to take a look at how to interpret criticism as a way for you to grow as a person, how to respond to it. So stick around.
All right, Chris. So me and you have a lot of discussions on the channel, off the channel, but I want to start with this. You are primarily in the business of design. So we get a lot of comments, naturally. 2+ million followers. Some people love it. Some people, it rubs them the wrong way, or maybe they just don't have a bearing on the context of things that we're talking about. So we had a comment come up on one of our most recent videos, and it said, so are you just obsessed with money at this point, or do you still consider yourself a designer? When you hear that question, where does your head go? What is your response? And let's just open up the dialogue from there.
I actually think responding to criticism is where we can grow. So I look at this, and you and I have talked about this before, and according to Tony Robbins, every form of communication is either a cry for help or an expression of love. This does not sound like an expression of love, so it sounds like a cry for help. And what does that mean? He's not literally crying like, "Oh, Chris, help me, I don't understand." But it's like, yo, bro, your videos are confusing. Your content seems to be geared towards one thing, and do you even do this anymore? So let's break it apart. And the best way to break these things apart is to look at it objectively, like not to have any emotional investment in the right or wrong response. It sounds to me like this person thinks all I care about is money. More money for me, more money, money, money. And to that I say, I used to work really, really hard so I can save up enough money to have financial security for myself, for my wife, my 2 kids, and for my extended family, like my parents, my brothers. Anybody who needs help, I would be able to help financially. That if there were any unforeseen financial catastrophe, I would be able to weather that storm. Now, Blair Enns shared this on Twitter. If you can solve a problem by writing a check, you don't have a problem. So a lot of people run into stress around money because they can't afford to spend that money. And I hear this all the time, and people live in this place where they just don't have enough to eat. So it's a bad place. So I try to get myself to a place where I can make enough money where those financial pressures and stress of not having enough are gone. Now, I've been very fortunate in my life. Even though we grew up as refugee immigrants to this country, just a few years after starting my business, I learned the art of business and the business of art, and I was able to excel and make more money than I had a right to make. I'm talking about 1995, Los Angeles, in the beginning of what would be known as the motion design industry, where there were probably less than 12 companies in the world who were competing at the level in which I was competing at. I had a 1 in 12 chance of getting a call for a gig. Those are pretty good odds in the world. And I wish that for anybody and everybody. So here's like a little sidebar note here. There's always a gap when you transition from one cycle to a new cycle, and it's a paradigm shift. In that shift, whole groups of people, whole industries and businesses are wiped out completely while giving birth to brand new industries and new people and new ways of doing things. The internet is a classic example of just the beginning of a massive shift in how we do work. Yes. Zoom exists as a multi-billion-dollar company today because of the internet. Netflix cannot exist in the way that it does today without the internet. And these are just a few of the things. Before you had an iPhone, you probably had an iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Many of you carried a separate phone and a camera, 2 separate devices. So this one device eats away and destroys whole industries. Groups of people are laid off. They don't have a job anymore. The standard bearer back then were 2 companies, Nokia and Motorola. They were the kings of cell phone manufacturers. Now, when was the last time you bought a Motorola phone? These are opportunities for people when there's paradigm shifts. So we must ask ourselves this one question, Mo. Are there paradigm shifts happening right now? And the answer is, of course there are. Some we can see, some we can't, but one that, unless you've been sleeping on a rock, is called artificial intelligence or machine learning. I say that because you're like, well, Chris, lucky for you, you were there in 1995 in Los Angeles, right? But here we are, 2023. Where are you in the world? Have you heard of something called ChatGPT? That was a bit of a diversion or a tangent. Let me get back to the main thing. Do I care about money? Absolutely. As a person who grew up with not a lot of money, it was my obsession. It was my driving principle as an entrepreneur to go out and make money so I can create that little cushion and live the American dream. So a funny thing happened along that journey, which is I actually got to that place where I have financial freedom, where I no longer have to work. I could literally retire. How do I know? I asked my financial planner, John. And John said, Chris, you could have retired years ago. And when this person is asking me, am I obsessed with money? Yes, but not the way that you think. I'm not obsessed about making it anymore. Now I'm obsessed about helping other people who are on their own entrepreneurial journey, whether they self-identify as creative or not, to help them achieve their level of success. They have to have a different relationship with money, not only their mindset, their belief systems, but how they communicate, how they talk about money, how they design their business so that they can work less and make more so that they can have that rainy day fun. A couple of years ago, prior to moving to the house in which we live in, my wife had this dream, this desire to remodel some parts of our home. One of her places, her sanctuary, is the bathroom. We have a massive bathroom. It's really big. Okay. It's bigger than my first bedroom. It's enormous. And she was a little stressed out. I said, honey, what's wrong? And she said to me, what if I make the wrong decision? And what if I get it wrong? I said, it doesn't matter. Here's the cool thing. Make the best decision. Do your homework. Try to imagine this. And if you get it wrong after they install it, sit with it for one day. If you don't like it, tell them to rip it out and do what you want again. It's only money. And she let out this big sigh. Now, nobody wants to throw money out the window. And we even like less the idea of wasting perfectly good raw materials. But I knew that if I could spend some of the money that we made to alleviate the stress my wife was feeling around this decision, to embolden her, to empower her, that's what money is supposed to be for.
That's why your obsession exists, to alleviate that pressure and that need for it.
So the original question is, am I obsessed with money? Mm-hmm. I was, I'm not, and I am, but not the way that you think I am. I'm obsessed about helping you make money. There's a great quote, and I'm going to screw it up a little bit, from Zig Ziglar. He says, you can have everything you want if you help enough people get what they want. So the person who's asking this question, Chris, are you obsessed with just making money? Because if I was, why do I continue to release content that I know I could sell and only offer it exclusively behind a gated paywall? You need to really think about that, friend, because we've now probably released close to 2,000 videos, maybe more at this point, because we're on some kind of consistent release schedule with our videos. So I think the question is a little bit misguided. Now, I can tell that for a lot of people, when they run into one or two pieces of content, I teach people how to make money. Like, oh, this guy's only caring about money. It's a fair criticism, but you're not really looking at it much deeper than a knee-jerk reaction. And you know what they say about that expression? You can't spell knee-jerk without being a jerk. So there's some part in there. Okay?
I have never heard that one, but I'm here for it nonetheless.
Because I made it up. And then the question is, are you still a designer? And that's meant to be, I think, an insult. Like, bro, you still design? Bro, you lift? It's one of those kind of questions. It's a question statement mostly designed to stab at you, to pick you apart.
100%.
Because they've made this decision of what a designer does, looks like, talks about, and is obsessed over. But I was reading Marty Neumeier's book. I think it was The Brand Gap. But in it, he said, what does it mean to be a designer or to design? And then he pointed to Nobel laureate Herbert Simon's definition of design. One who devises a course of action to go from an existing condition to an improved condition. Am I a designer? Yes. Maybe not the way that you think. Am I the person who's like sketching logos and putting together swatches of materials? Very rarely do I do that. The kind of design I'm most interested in as a 51-year-old man is I want to design people's lives. I want to help them achieve what it is that their life was meant to be. Help them to achieve their fullest potential. That's the kind of design I'm interested in. So a life designer, a business designer, a culture designer, a communications designer. For some people, their head's going to hurt hearing things like this because it's like, yo, bro, I just want to move some type around on a screen. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Right.
And more power to you. And I'm not trying to flex anybody, but when I went to school, I learned that pretty quickly and I got bored of it. I just feel like I need to move on to the next part of my life. I don't want to be stuck in the same place. I put in my 10,000 hours. And if you're not sure, friend, here's what you need to do. Because you don't know me from Jack, and I think that's fair. If you search my name, Chris Do, and my design company, it's called Blind, Blind, and you type in the word awards, you will see the kinds of things we've won, the work that we've produced. That's it.
I want to take this in a direction based on everything you said, because I believe you've answered this person. If you were having a conversation, maybe they would take you down a different rabbit hole. For the designers out there and the creatives out there that are actually challenged with talking about money, I'm happy that there's somebody like you in the space making these conversations normal, because there's a lot of emotional baggage that we have around that conversation. And I say we because I'm definitely still a part of that group. So let's land this plane with this last piece. For those that are still struggling around the concept of money, around the negotiation, around saying a price, that need to hear this incessantly because we need to be reminded more than we do learn, what do you tell them to continue to resolve this feeling that they have so they can become as equipped as you are in the business landscape?
I would have to have a dialogue with this person because this is such an individual question. If we ask ourselves, why do I think what I think? Why do I believe what I believe? And we start to travel back in time to see when each idea first took root in our mind and we connect it to the experience and are able to look at it objectively, we'll start to realize we form patterns of thought with very little information. I'll give you an example. Okay, when I was a kid, we're talking about it in the 80s here, I think. I'm in junior high and the trend was Velcro wallets. So I asked my mom, okay, we can I get a Velcro wallet? My mom's cool. Let's go to the flea market, aka the swap meet. She was trying to negotiate the price, and the way that she negotiated the price, it scarred me a little bit. It was both people manipulating each other. Like the seller and my mom is like, and my mom's a shrewd negotiator, and I as a kid am feeling very uncomfortable because I'm thinking, if the vendor asks for $30, just pay the $30 and let's get out of here. So I go away, not scarred, but an imprint has been made in my mind that negotiating for money is a sign of bad taste, poor manners, where if you walk into a legitimate store, you just pay them the money, you get what it is that you want. So now I'm walking away feeling uncomfortable talking about money. Now, if you continue that thought, that emotional energy, the resonance of that one incident, you're like, that's a dumb observation of one small, very minute thing. And then I talk to people who grew up in entrepreneurial families, whose mom or dad or brother or sister, whoever it was out there helping people to feel comfortable about themselves, educating them, spending hours talking to them about a decision they're about to make, and then gently easing them into a buy state, and then they are able to close the sale. They have an entirely different relationship with money, with negotiations, and business in general. We're having these ideas and emotions imprinted into us, and we carry these ideas, not often examining where they came from. When Matthew and Sina finished school, he and a bunch of buddies started a design company. They had a nice go at it, and then they hit hard times and things didn't work out, and that experience hurt him. It scarred him in a way that he became scared of entrepreneurship because he didn't like the sting of failure. Up until that point in time, he was the golden child. Everything he did always worked out. And so he wound up working for me for a really long time. And finally, we had this conversation and it was about addressing the inner dialogue, which is, why are you afraid to go and start a business? And he said, because I don't want to fail again. Now, the real dialogue should be, when did you start this business? Just straight out of school, in my early 20s. What do you think someone who's in their 20s without any business training, mentorship, what is the likelihood of them succeeding? Oh, actually not that high. So if they were to fail again, and if you were their friend to support them, what would you say to them? I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's to the effect of, I'd support them. You're a young person. Entrepreneurship, a lot of risk. You're going to fail. Failure is part of the game, and it's okay for you to fail. Just get back on that horse and go for it again. So this is the problem. We have unhealthy relationships with money, with negotiations. It brings us stress, and we're usually conflict averse. We don't want to do anything that creates tension between us and another person. This is why we can't hire people. This is why when clients tell us to do something, we know we don't want to do it, we agree, because we don't know how to address points of tension without it ending in a moment of conflict. So we don't have the skills. We haven't had anyone to pattern after, to model ourselves after, so that we have a healthy way of looking at how conflict is addressed, raised, and then resolved. I hope this conversation around having a conversation with people who might be your biggest critic showed you a different way of looking at it. It's actually not an attack on you. It's just people are a little confused and they need help in understanding it. And you could very well be one of those people watching this episode right now. It's my sincerest hope that you understand a little bit more about the motivation behind what it is that I'm doing, how I got to where I'm at. And if you're still struggling with a money mindset, perhaps today is a good day to start a different relationship, to tell yourself a new story. And if you found this episode to be valuable, enjoyable, don't forget to hit that like button and hit subscribe if you feel so compelled. It would give me a lot of pleasure if you did that. Thank you so much.